and welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Education for the 21st Century. This is a monthly podcast brought to you by the Educational Leadership Program at Lehigh University in the College of Education. We focus on challenging issues present in the U.S. educational system and in our society today. We bring attention to concerns such as educational leadership, school and community, innovation in education, research to practice, social cultural dynamics in schools, and we bring together experts to discuss the challenges and present solutions. Today, we want to welcome, it's a treat today, folks. We have Dr. Fesus Obiakor, one of the most renowned individuals, scholars, researchers in the areas of special education, multicultural education. His work is interdisciplinary as it also hits areas of educational psychology, educational leadership, higher education, teaching and learning, and so on and so forth. And as we talk today, you'll get some more insight on Dr. Obiakor's work, the connection between Dr. Obiakor and myself. We go way back, way back. For those of you who don't know, he has a vast bio. And also at this time, I want to, of course, introduce and welcome Tashina Kabaz, my graduate student here in the College of Education, doctoral student, who's doing some great work. Tashina, I guess you're going to tell us about Dr. Obiakor, right?
Absolutely. So today, as Dr. Beecham mentioned, we have Festus E. Obiakor, PhD. He is the Chief Executive Manager, Sunny Educational Consulting, Shorewood, Wisconsin. His graduate degrees are from Texas Christian University and New Mexico State University. He has taught at Rust College, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, Henderson State University, Emporia State University, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and at the City College of New York and Valdosta State University, where he served as department head and professor, respectively. A professor, scholar, leader, and consultant, he has served as distinguished visiting professor at a variety of universities. He is the author of more than 150 publications, including books, articles, and commentaries, and he has presented papers at many national and international conferences. He serves on the editorial board of reputable nationally and internationally refereed journals, including Multicultural Learning and Teaching, in which he serves as executive editor. Dr. Obiakor is a leader who has been involved in many landmark scholarly works in the fields of general and special education, with a particular focus on African American and other culturally and linguistically diverse learners who come from vulnerable populations. He continues to prescribe multidimensional methods of assessment, teaching, and interventions for these individuals. Based on this premise, Dr. Obiakor created the Comprehensive Support Model, CSM, an intervention model that values the collaborative, consultative, and cooperative energies of students, families, teachers, service providers, communities, and government agencies. Wow, we are so honored to have you here today with us, Dr. Obiakor.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Excellent. Dr. Obiakor, we do have questions for you, but first I'm going to go back in time for a little bit. The name of this podcast is called Education for the 21st Century. Dr. Obiakor, do you know where I got that title from?
Well, I can guess, but I don't guess because I'm very practical. So you tell me.
Remember our first book I ever wrote, I ever was part of?
Yes.
Urban Education for the 21st Century. Yes. So we have to credit you with regard to even this podcast is partially named after our first book. We met years ago at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I first got a faculty position. Dr. Obiakor was already there and basically took me under his wing and gave me the best career advice. He basically said to me one day, look, first of all, what are you doing right now? What are you doing with your time? How are you using your time? Are you writing? And he basically said, look, you can do all this stuff around here, but if you're not writing, if you're not doing the work, you're not doing anything, and you're not going to make it. Now you have a choice to make. You know, we can get to work, or you can go on doing whatever it is you were doing. I sat down and I got to work. I've been working ever since. So thank you. I want to publicly say thank you for that career advice and your support over the years. It's so appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Tashina, let's go.
All right. So to begin, in your educational philosophy statement, you say that you believe in quality with a heart. Can you expand upon that for us?
Yes, I think the problem we have in education is that we talk about quality all the time, but we lose touch of the reality, the connectivity to human beings. When we talk about education, we're trying to educate human beings, children, adults, and so on. So I'm a pragmatist who believes in learning by doing. That means that I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I tell people I like workhorses. I don't like thoroughbreds. I like people who give it their very best. Even if they make mistake, I'm ready to understand that. But so as a pragmatist, I like people who are trying their very best. So what that does is that it forces you to see, not just with your eyes, but to see with your mouth, to see with your head, to see with your ears, to see with your actions. Think about it. When we all were growing up, our parents don't have to flog us all the time. When we're in situations, they look at us. They're talking to us, but they're talking to us with their eyes. They look at us, then we straighten up. We know it's time to shift paradigm. So whatever you do in life, without a heart, it's like a house without a roof. You build the house, but there's no roof. So it's gonna be raining and hitting you hard because you forgot the foundational principles that are spiritually inclined. That's why if you go to the Bible, even if that's what you want to look at, if you look at the Quran, if you look at the Talmud, it tells you about loving thy neighbor as thyself. That's not theoretical. That's not even, and he even went further to say, it is easy for an elephant to enter into the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. So the point is that anytime you lose touch of that heart, you've lost touch of reality.
Thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Obiakor, how about this one? What are some of the key concepts within multicultural psychology and special education? Sort of where has your work gone in those areas over the years?
Thank you very much. I tell people that I'm very multidimensional, and to be successful in what we're doing, in fact, in life, you have to be multidimensional. For me, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a teacher, I'm a scholar, I'm a friend, I'm a family member. I belong to community, my town's community here. I belong to it. So somewhere there has to be some connectivity. So when I talk about multiculturalism, they're all connected. Multiculturalism is connected to psychology, and psychology is connected to special education. Think about it. Multiculturalism means valuing other people, right? Then psychology means valuing individual differences. Ladies and gentlemen, not only are we different inter-individually, we are different intra-individually. So when you see people have problems, they go, we're different now. No, you're not different. You've been different for a long time. But because you were carried away by emotions, you did not see those differences. And if you go deeper, some people even understand these differences. But guess what? They think that their own difference is better than your own difference. Think about that. That's where we get into special education, valuing other human beings in spite of their abilities and disabilities, using instruments that are valid and reliable, teaching them by caring for them, because to teach me is to know me, working with them as you work with your family members. So multiculturalism, psychology, special education are almost the same fields. And all fields are very interrelated. The problem is that we have these dichotomies that we create in the field to make us feel good, that we're giants in this field. But believe me, a good teacher must be a good scholar. Let your teaching inform your scholarship. Let your scholarship inform your service. Let your service inform your leadership. With these dichotomies, we get confused. But these things are related as long as you're dealing with who? Fellow human beings. That's a great question, by the way.
And the way that you're able to really break it down for us to remind us that essentially we are all connected. When you mentioned multidimensional connectivity, I mean, that is the basics, right? Fundamentally. And it's interesting, as you say, how we almost separate ourselves, differentiate ourselves.
Yes.
So when you bring us to the basics, if we think about interventions in schools, what do you think have been the most challenging aspects of making interventions culturally responsive for those who may not, be as familiar?
Thank you very, very much. As human beings, we have differences, don't we? We understand these differences. But then the problem is, how do we go? And these differences, what we have, makes us have some perceptions, personal perceptions. So when students ask me, Dr. Obiakor, I'm not prejudiced. I said, I am prejudiced because I tried it several times where I took some clothes to wear the next day, I ironed them, got ready to wear them the next day. I wake up in the morning, I don't wear the same clothes. And I asked myself, why do I keep doing this? Because that's my prejudice. Today I said, I'm gonna wear blue shoes, white shoe. So prejudice is not a bad thing if you value the other person's prejudice. So we all have, as human beings, what I call acta gratuit, freedom to behave. But when my freedom to behave conflicts with your freedom to behave, then we have what Dr. Beecham and Carlos McRae call cultural collusion. So our goal in life is to prevent cultural collusion. So if you look at it, one of the major challenges is how do we go from out of the box presumptions to out of the box thinking? Let me give you an out of the box presumption that white people are more intelligent than white people, than black people. I taught college for almost 40 years. I did not teach more than 200 black students. So I have more than 60,000 white people carrying my brain all over this nation. So if we go with that presumption, that's out of the box presumption, just based on what we call biological determinism, that some people are more superior than others. When you don't value a human being, think about it for a second. If you like a friend, If you like somebody and that person is your friend, even when that person uses a curse word, you go, that's the way he behaves. That's the way he behaves. Then even if your enemy is laughing, you go, that's a fake laugh. Even though that laughter is from the heart. So as we deal with students, that theory of biological determinism, which thinks that every Black person has IQs that is 2 standard deviations below the mean. That's dangerous. That's why you look for leaders. You go, a Black cannot be a quarterback. A Black cannot be a principal. That's a big challenge. It's a major challenge. And if we don't deal with it, every other thing we're doing will be what we call a vainglory. We'll be engaging in what we call fraudulent multiculturalism, which is the second issue. Fraudulent multiculturalism. You know, we're now in a woke culture. I want us to go beyond woke culture to doing culture. I don't want us to go to where we are afraid to talk, afraid to love. Now people are going. I have a white guy who spent all his career going to Africa. He wears danchiki all the time. He loves it. One day, a student told him, do you know you're engaging in cultural appropriation? And the guy was like, what are you talking about? I'm dealing with I love danchiki. You need to stop wearing it because it's offending me. What? We've gone crazy. So I want us to engage in work culture, but also want us to engage in doing culture, which deals with cultural reality, so that the multiculturalism we're trying to achieve is not fraudulent. White institutions have done a good job doing it, where they decide to say, we're going to have one Black person here. And when that Black person is leaving, they hire another Black. They go, we made 100% increase in our hiring. No, one was leaving while the other one was coming in. They just met in summer. There was a conflict. So they write it down, the data. We now have 100% increase. We still had one. You go to the school, you look at it, we still have one Black. Can somebody tell me, ladies and gentlemen, how a school like City College of New York in a Black neighborhood had only one Black department head in the whole university, and that was me? It was already an unsafe environment for me. How do we get out of fraudulent multiculturalism? Very dangerous, more dangerous than we know. We go, and the Black person they hire, we say, I'm here now because I'm the smartest. No, you're just there because they view you as a token. We need to get to where in inner city schools, you have many white teachers. In suburban schools, you have many Black teachers. I want to see that. When we get there, then we've arrived. And that problem we have is this idea of funding. I want to see us put our money where our mouths are. One of the things that bother me so much is when it comes to taking care of the less fortunate, we start looking at budget like what's happening right now. We say, oh, it's too much money. Yet you can buy a plane that just before you lift it up, you pay $1 billion to fly the plane. Then you don't have $200 million to feed the poor. That is what we call cultural disconnect. That is where what we're doing in higher education is not tied to what is happening in the communities. So we need to reconcile what is happening in the community with what we're doing in our classrooms. I can go on and on. I love this topic because, and when you go deeper, you discover this has nothing to do with how liberal you are or how conservative you are. This has something to do with what? Common sense. We need to hire thinkers in our colleges. It's almost like the more inept you are, and you fit in whatever that means, then, oh, you're great. You fit in. Then how do you get changes to occur? How do you disrupt the equilibrium?
Dr. Obiakor,
huh?
hey, remember you mentioned cultural collusion. One of the things you told me a long time ago, you said, look, you need to be known in the field for something. You need to make a mark as where people will cite your work. And from that thought came my investigation into cultural issues within education, which led to what we kind of now call cultural collision and collusion, the 2011 book, which of course you wrote, I believe you wrote our afterward in that particular work, which evolved into what we now call culturally relevant leadership.
Sure.
Is our sort of our new terminology in what we're working on right now. Doc, your comments bring us to something to the 21st century, to the year 2021, and we're still in this pandemic and we're doing virtual learning. So our next question for you is, during this time of virtual learning, how can schools enhance support for culturally and linguistically diverse learners?
Thank you. If you did this interview and you did not talk about that, I would have said. So anyway, thank you for asking that question. That gets back to the issue I raised initially about funding. Funding is so necessary in what we're doing. To teach me is to know me. We fail to understand that there are people who don't have computers right now as we speak. And many students have fallen behind, not because they cannot learn, but because they really don't have money to deal with it. It's like you have a PTO meeting with parents, and the parent doesn't have money, doesn't have transportation, the technology to come to the meeting. The parent waits for a bus, and the bus comes like 3 hours later. And you go, you need to be following time. We forget so many things. And when we deal with this culture that is new technology, we also need to understand that we need to educate the parents. If you look at all laws in special education, in general education, they say involve parents. And people misunderstand it to mean tell parents what to do. I've attended many PTO meetings where teachers are telling me, you need to understand about parenting. I will ask them, how many kids you have? No kids. Where did you read it from? In your book. From your book, you said we should empower parents. That's what I mean. Empowering parents doesn't mean being a bully to parents. It means listening, active listening to parents. So if we're talking about virtual education without the technology that goes with it, without the sensitivity that goes with it, without the caring, the listening spirit that goes with it, you know, we've scourged the snake but not killed it. So we need to go back to drawing board, work with parents, reach parents where they are, reach kids where they are, and understand that we need to work together. The energy we put in building planes and in going to the moon, I don't want to go live in the moon if I cannot survive on this earth. Let's take care of the creations that we have in this world right now, rather than thinking about how to go to the moon. I had a colleague in those days who said, Festus, you really don't know how to use technology yet? It will improve your publication. Then I said, the last time I checked, I was the one editing your work. You use your computer to play solitaire. So That's the joke I have about technology. So we need to really put our money where our mouth is and understand that technology is a living tool that we can use to maximize the fullest potential of all learners.
Now I saw a hand here, Mr. Charles Obiakor. Did you had a question?
Oh, no, not really a question. I was just, adding feedback that I really agree with, Dr. O. He's my father, and I really agree with him. Definitely all aspects of society and all aspects of, I do agree with his solutions when it comes to, working with parents, educators, kids, and every aspect, from, the educational aspects, and actually looking at solutions and not just, the talking, part of it, but also, from, every, part of it, psychological and, working with, different things, and I really agree with that, those solutions, and, and it's all about the progress, taking chances and, taking action. And I really definitely agree with that aspect, in all parts of society, from the math to the sciences to, to government, to politics and everything like that. So thumbs up.
Charles, thank you for your comment. And
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Charles, we never.
He took classes from me, so I'm glad he's still laughing.
Charles, hey, look, man, we've never met, so I'm so glad to get a chance to meet you, and thank you for
nice to meet you.
Thank you for sharing your dad, man, because he's mentored so many of us. And
yes, me too included. Yes, thank you.
All right, Tashina, I think we're up with another question, right?
Yes, you got it. Okay, next question. Kind of changing course a little bit. Could you please give us an update on your journal, Multicultural Learning and Teaching?
Thank you very much. Before I give you an update, I need to go back a little bit how the journal started. I was serving as editor of a journal in the field, so now well known, and my term will be over soon. So I contacted a colleague at the university, Dr. Bob Argos, and his number one name is the field of special education. So I contacted him. I said, I'm thinking about having a journal that is kind of different, that is multicultural, but interdisciplinary. So that scientists, people in public health, and everybody could publish in there as long as they respect cultural sensitivity. He said, I've been thinking about that for years, but I'm not legitimate. And I laughed. I said, how are you not legitimate? He said, I'm white. I said, well, now you're Black. You're legitimate. So he decided to join the journal. Thank God the university there supported it by giving us 3 junior faculty and added about $150,000. We started the journal. And that was something I thought about, somewhere I woke up from sleep and I was taking a shower, it came to my mind. And that journal has been there now for 16 years. And it has helped more than 2,000 people get their tenure, which is what it's all about in what we do. So, it's an interdisciplinary journal that is more culturally focused. We publish things in leadership, general education, public health, and we have authors, scholars from Russia, Turkey, Czech Republic, Israel, Palestinian. So the journal is actually doing what I wanted it to do, but the journal has grown more than me now, so it's a journal that has been making a difference, and that's what we wanted it to do. It's not narrow, it's broad, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, but as long as you focus on how do we teach people who are culturally different. I wanted a journal that will have a global outreach, and this journal has just done it. So we can't even know the circulation, because if people from Turkey, Israel, so it has more than millions and millions of circulation. So I think back and go, wow, God is a miraculous God. How that journal started, and just making a difference. I think Dr. Beecham was there at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee when I started the journal. He was one of the first publishers in the journal. And that stuff is still there as one of the most referenced pieces in the journal. You know, that's the scholar. Your mentor is a scholar. So the journal has made a difference. We're so excited about the what the journal has done, you know. Thanks for asking that question. Yeah.
Excellent. Dr. Obiakor, now one of the things you tell me to this date is, look, it's not about what you have right now. What do you have next? You're only as good as your next publication. So with that, we're going to ask you the question. Please tell us about your latest book or books, because you probably have like 2 or 3 going at the same time.
Yeah. I'm going to give you the two latest one, but I have 2 in press right now. This is one I hope the readers, the powerful multicultural essays for innovative educators and leaders. It was reviewed, this book was reviewed by the Teachers College Records, which is our New York Times. So, and the most current one is Valuing Other Voices. I said discourses that matter in education, social justice, and multiculturalism. The reason why I decided to write this is, I think in our search for multiculturalism, we're also silencing other voices. Like the story I told you about the Jewish guy or the professor who's been going to Africa for years, all his career. In fact, he didn't get tenure because he was focusing on Africa, where he was, but he's now very well known. I can't mention his name. And a student just accused him of not wearing something that, because he's white, why should he wear African attire? This is where he spends all his life, building schools in Africa. So I decided we need to start valuing other voices, even when those voices are heretical. And when we do that, we start valuing global education, gender education. Think about it. How many times have I, even as a department head, I will finish a meeting and the faculty members will sit down there and another colleague, a junior faculty, will say, what Dr. Obiakor is saying to us is, so even when I was saying it, it wasn't sinking in until somebody else who is white said it. That's a shame. So I decided, wow. And these people are supposed to be liberal. So this thing focuses on how do we reach out to everybody? Whether you're from Nigeria, Jamaica, Palestinian, Israel. If we look hard enough, we see something beautiful about other people. The problem is that we do not look hard enough. That's the issue. So we need to start valuing other voices, not value them theoretically by understanding that the environment matters. We need to create healthy environments where you have safe spaces. In an environment where people are afraid to voice their opinion, people will think, oh, we're disciplined here. No, we're not disciplined. We have all kinds of things swept under the rug, waiting to explode. So that's why I did this book, because we need to start valuing other voices. For example, real quick, as a doctoral student, we had a lady who said, well, African men are very chauvinistic. And the professor looked around. I said, well, in my family, my mother might be the chauvinistic one, because without my mother, my father wouldn't have been alive. I mean, in reality. Yet we've not been able to elect a woman president in the United States. Yet we're telling other people who've elected women, India, Indira Gandhi, Pakistan, Africa, Liberia, Jamaica, Bermuda, Germany, England. So we need to start valuing other voices. Somebody asked a question one time, Dr. Beecher, you might have forgotten. They asked Carl Grant, the professor, the distinguished professor at, we've known everything about multiculturalism. What's multiculturalism? We should end it because we all know each other. We all can get along. And he said, there's a professor here whom I disagree with you because my kids are Nigerians, since my wife is Jamaican, Jamaicans, they're also Americans. Shouldn't we study how to work with such kids? Then the professor concluded, multiculturalism will never end as long as there is life. And let me also reiterate, multiculturalism will never end. For those who think it's a facade that will soon end, no, it will not end as long as life exists. We now have a Nigerian immigrant who is the Deputy Director of Treasury. Before long, you're going to have a Nigerian signature in your money. You have the attorney there, representative from Colorado, Negus from Eritrea. You have Omar from Somalia. The paradigms are shifting. The Palestinian, who is also in Congress, from Seattle, some from Detroit. The world is shifting. So we need to shift our powers and paradigm to respond to changes in human nature. Great question.
Wow, very, very profound. And so thinking about that, thinking about valuing other people's voices and how to move forward, where do you see your work going next?
Well, it's kind of interesting when people say you're retired, and I'm working harder now than when I was. Maybe I don't have all those mental blocks, like dealing with some incompetence. Now I can do some good work. Isn't that something? Since I retired, I've written 3 books that have been reviewed by Teachers College Records. So I don't know where it's going, but I'm really having a ball, because you can see a light at the end of the tunnel. I want those voices to be heard. Let me tell you how this started. I was working on my PhD. I did a little study to look at how foreign students responded to the culture on campus. I did not see any work in the literature. I went to my advisor, my white advisor, and asked him, Dr. Steve Style, I just did this research. I could not see any work on culture in Africa, of Africa that relates to African students. Then he laughed. Who needs them anyway? That touched me. I was supposed to have 7 publications before getting my PhD. That got me aggressive, because those who know me, if you're trying to stop me, that's how you get me to get to the next level. So only God knows the next level, in response to your question. But in one of my books, I have 8 steps to multicultural learning. The last step is continuing to learn. So I'm continuing to learn. I'm continuing to learn. That's my next step.
Profound. Well stated. Well stated. And at this point, this ends the interview questions that we have prepared. I'm going to give an opportunity now for anybody on the line. If you have something you want to say to Dr. Obiakor, a comment or question, we'll entertain comments and questions at this time. Kristen Obiakor mentioned a little earlier that there's a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation, which I noted was a great comment. Thank you for that. Do we have others on the line who want to, like I said, say something to Dr. Obiakor at this time, or questions for Dr. Obiakor? Feel free to unmute yourself. Charles?
Again, I appreciate you, my father, Dr. Obiakor. Everything is wonderful. Everything. I appreciate everybody who has. I appreciate this presentation, this event here. Tashina Kabaz, Floyd Beecham, nice to meet you. Nice to meet everyone here. This has been a wonderful event. And I really agree with all the ideas here. This is what life is about, when it comes to higher education and, putting things together and, all the aspects of society and, making sure that, students are learning and, achieving their goals and, that, failure of course is part of success. And, standardized tests are not the only, measure of, of the student's abilities. And of course, people can maximize their fullest potential in many different ways. And so it's all about, everything is connected to everything. And it's just all about, doing your best. So, that's what I appreciate about this. So I really agree with that, the ideals. So, again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, many thanks, to you, Dr. Floyd and Tashina. My name is Ngozi Ume, and I am appreciative, of being a participant in this forum. And I thank you guys for hosting this podcast and also for inviting our own dear brother, one of the proud sons, of my hometown, Dr. O. And we've, read, some of his books, and we appreciate him in our community. And I do have, a question, Dr. O, you mentioned about, multiculturalism, prejudice, and the disconnect. My question is, with the pandemic and the virtual learning, that has been going on, and, what we have read, in the newspapers and the media and, print and virtually about the impact, of virtual learning on the students. I, in particular, with the special, education, I wanted to hear, your thoughts, as to what strategies, families can, employ to help, students, who have been adversely, affected, whose performance, in education has, dropped as a result, of this pandemic.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ngozi. I have people from my town who are here, and God bless all of you. You've made me so proud. You brought tears into my eyes, So it means a lot to me that you all came. So I think you asked a very interesting question. This is period of pandemic. What do we do? If you look at all educational laws and requirements and rules, they talk about working with parents. But in action, when action starts, nobody works with parents. We forget the parents. How many of you have gone to PTO meetings where you're standing somewhere. The teacher is talking to a white parent. For 1 hour, still talking to the white parent. It's supposed to be 10 minutes. Then when it's your turn to come, then the parent, the teacher says, come on, let's deal with it. In 1 minute, you're out of there. So I don't even know how you measure. I don't know how you measure caring. But I came up with a term we call the C factor, the caring factor. If you're going to be a great teacher, you must have the caring factor. Number one, you must know your strengths and weaknesses as the person who provides it. We must empower parents. And empowering parents does not mean going toe-to-toe with teachers or going toe-to-toe with parents. Empowering parents mean believing in them. They know these kids more than you. What about the fact that there's a cultural disconnect between, how many of you, for those who are educated, have gone to teachers and go, my kid knows this, my kid could be in an advanced class. And the teacher is telling you, well, we have other brilliant kids here too. You're not interested in other brilliant kids, you're interested in your own kid. So that ability to listen is important. One of the things that, kind of the secret plan here is accreditation agencies. In accrediting schools, one of the rules is that you have to work within the frameworks of what's in the community. But when accreditation comes, I don't know how some of these schools get accredited, for God's sake, because they're not really healthy environments for minorities, especially those who are linguistically different or who have different national origin. It's a struggle. I was looking at the professor of all foreign professors. I know some of them, even all Black professors, African-American, foreign and non-foreign. We have the same student ratings, all of us. Did you all know that? Let that be your research. You have the same things, and the comments students have there do not relate to what you teach. They all relate to, I don't like how he laughs. I don't like how she laughs. I don't like how he talks. He's so serious. He's not serious. They don't rate the quality of your teaching. And yet we use these things to tenure teachers. Sometimes I know I'm going to say something that people might, I don't even know if tenure system works. It's a gimmick. So I don't know if I'm directly responding to your question, but I'm looking at all those kind of, it's like a net, a collection of problems that befall students during this virtual period, remote period. That's an excellent question. And when you talk about funding, do you know in those days we used to write grants, and the grants would be to train parents. Those grants, we don't have those grants anymore. How come you're training those parents? I'm not the one who had the kids. They should know how to raise the kids themselves. So those are issues that are really troubling. Yeah.
Yeah, Doc, I've got Linwood Gibson next. I've got let me see who's next here. Sir Enslim, and then Gina Obiakor. Linwood, Brother Linwood.
Hey, everyone. Sorry, I'm also here with my little one. I have a couple just comments and then maybe a question. First, I want to just say, again, thank you. Dr. Obiakor has been such an inspiration, but also integral in my career, my trajectory. For just as a really brief sort of summary of it, Dr. Obiakor came to City College of New York to end up becoming a department chair, and he took me and two of my other colleagues under his wing, much like Dr. Beecham, and really gave us opportunity to understand the things that were going on. But it wasn't just from a, scholarship point of view. Like, yes, plenty of opportunities, so many opportunities to produce good scholarship and to be able to focus on the issues of today. But also just from a perspective of what happens in higher ed and sort of like the real undertones of what's going on, especially, in the type of places we're working in one of the most liberal places in the world, in one of the, biggest, university systems in New York City. And there were a lot of things that were happening within that environment that we as young professors probably wouldn't have been able to see. So that was big, that you were able to be there for us and everything that you went through and we went through together. So of course I always have that to draw on my experiences. And then so again, thank you for that. And also just continuing to present opportunities for me to continue my work. Excuse the other thing that I want to just mention and just say is I really appreciate your conversations around multiculturalism, being biracial myself, although I identify as a Black man in America because that's what that's how America views me. But I also have my kids. I appreciate that analogy that you made, but talking about your children, Nigerian, Jamaican, but also American. And my kids also are, obviously like from me, but then my wife's a first generation immigrant from South America. So my kids are also that embodiment of multiculturalism, multilingual, well, hopefully multilingual. My wife continues to talk Spanish to them, which I tell her every day to do. Just appreciate like your view on it and how, we live in this world that is kind of converging together, but also like so apart, which is, it feels weird to be in that space at the same time. So just thank you for that. And then my question and sort of like just if you can give me a really brief, your thoughts on it is for like professionals, like I'm tenured, which I think tenure is a trap. I really agree with you around the tenure thing. I think it's a trap. I think once you get tenure, they pile stuff on you because they don't think you're going to leave. I was having a really good conversation with my colleague about this. Well, why would you leave? You got tenure. Like your tenure might not follow you if you go somewhere else, but then they just continue to, once you're tenured, they just continue to pile stuff on you. My question is if you could just give us your thoughts on, I think that today in today's world, especially with all of the wokeness and people, it's not, we've been talking about this forever, right? But now more and more people who, profess to be liberal or, having, right now they asked me to be on the, we got a new president and they're doing a new strategic plan. So I'm on one of the steering committees for that. And really the focus is really on, diversity, inclusion, equity and inclusion. And, we've been talking about this forever, but now it's becoming more and more, right? But I also feel like where do we get to a point where, am I being asked because they really want my ideas, or am I being asked as part of, the idea of tokenism? I want to continue to give. I know everything I give also takes away from other things. So it's kind of like that fine line. And like, what advice would you have for someone in my situation where are, young professors who I want to get my objective, my goal is full professor. I'm not stopping until I get that. But I feel like I get in a rut because there's so much service now that you expect, and this idea of invisible service, right? So anyway, if you can give some ideas, I know I don't want to take. I'm sorry I took up so much time, people.
No, that's a good question.
I'm gonna call you later anyway because we need to just talk, brother. That's
Yeah, that's a good question. I met Dr. Linwood. I met him at a convention, international convention, and they had an opening. I went over there and I got the job, and they supported me getting the job. And hey, I had to mentor them. I know the secrets of the secrets of the secrets. So regarding that, let me say this. If they invite you to serve as a committee member, go there and serve as a committee member. But then it's like when they hired me, when institutions hire me, they go, oh, he's a foreigner. He's a different kind of black. But when I come in there, they discover, oh no, he's more black than we thought. It's your job to go there and do a wonderful job. And those are out of the box assumptions. You need to outthink the system by going there, doing a good job, advocating. So when I'm in searches, they think, sometimes most of the people, I learned the technique. When I like a candidate, I pretend like I don't like the candidate. So they will vote for that candidate. Then when I don't like a candidate, I pretend like I like the candidate. Then they will hate the candidate. So you got to know these little techniques of how these things play themselves out. So it's called triangulation, where you actually don't like something, you pretend you like it and wait for. So it's your job now to use your brain. And sometimes when people interview and I want them to be in there and they're black, I look for a way to talk to them later on. Call them, I say, I enjoyed your interview. You know, do you have any question for me? And I tell them, this is a dangerous environment or is this a good environment? You don't want them to come to that hell house if it's a hell house. So your job now is a spiritual job, especially when you're tenured. You're almost like a preacher going to a different nation, meeting new people and so on and so forth. Your role becomes intense, but don't be careful about being overused. You know, you and I know, that's what I told Dr. Beecham a long time ago. Be careful about being overused, because if they overuse you, all those services you're doing, they don't calculate it when they're voting for tenure or promotion. They go back to how many books did you write? How many publications did you write? You go, I served in these committees ago. Well, and yet they're the ones who overloaded you. So you got to be technical in this. If you like, if there's a job there and I'm applying for it, pretend like you don't know me. I won't feel bad, but talk to me later on. And you got to develop some techniques to do this. If you develop those techniques, now the technique is no more a secret technique, it's now public. Oh my God.
Well, Doc, there's always new techniques.
Yeah, there's always new techniques. So right. I urge you to keep doing what you're doing, but have a soul, have a heart in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, brother Linwood, I would also say, man, as somebody who just went up for full not too long ago, Dr. Obiakor is right, man. No matter what service you're doing, keep your scholarship and research at the forefront, right? Because the time will come when people in that room, they revert back to, okay, it's scholarship, teaching, and service in that order. By the way, especially for institutions like, you know, high research institutions where you need to do a lot of research output. And look, man, you got tenure now, so you can say in certain cases, hey, look, I can't do that. You know, yes. You can say no, yes. and people will back off, and they'll understand, because you got one more level to go. So you can be strategic and take on the service that you want to take on, or take on the service that'll inform your research, where you also getting something out of it, or take on the service that's going to be integral to the future of the organization. So you get on the committee because you know, oh, you're going to do hiring, and it's going to be somebody I need to be on this decision. I need to be in on this decision. Okay, I'm jumping on that committee. Or it's diversity related. Okay, I know I need to be on this committee. But this other one over here about the new mascot, I don't need to be on that committee.
Nah, that's really, thank you both of you for that advice. I mean, being in the middle, I feel is that sort of drag of, you know, what do you say no to, what do you say yes to, and just making sure keeping that the right. I mean, you know, there's a lot. So I actually one time another time I want to just pick both of your brains and just.
We'll talk, man. I give you
yes, sir.
We got to talk.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah,
got
to add to it, please, before we go to the next question, Linwood, just to thy own self be true. When somebody says, oh, you're a different black, you tell them, I already know that. But you see, the difference that they mean is not the way you view the difference. They mean, okay, you have some white blood there, so you're different, so you're superior. But you let them know you've gone through so much hell. That I know. Your dean could not even say hello to you. So so I think we need to come to the realization that everything we do in life, we're playing a kind of role. Just know the role you're playing and be vigilant, be smart, and be vigilant. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, Sir Anselm.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Like I said, my name is Anselm. I'm from Obodo. We have to thank you, Dr. Floyd and Shina, for this wonderful episode, and particularly my own brother, Dr. O, our own brother, Dr. O. We're proud of you.
Thank you.
I know Dr. O as a child, and but I happen to know him more now that we find ourselves here and there. Not to say that he's like a part of my family now, because I think I can share anything confidently with him, having known more of him. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it, and thank you for the wonderful case you are raising for our town.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have something I want to ask a question, but may give a little insight on that. I've enjoyed your talk talking about multiculturalism. Mine is going more of a cultural identity.
Sure.
Like we came from Africa. I've had opportunity, being a community leader here also, I've had opportunity to be in one of the people that organize and execute African stuff. But there are certain things we find difficult here in our community, in the functions that we normally organize before post-COVID. I kind of find a zeal from our African brothers here, African Americans here, to identify with Africa more than the African children we raise here. Yeah. So, because like I said, in one of our community, I've officiated with the ambassador here, whereby we integrate Black Africans into African community, and many of them have traveled to Africa to identify themselves in many tribes, which is Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone. And some of them have even bought a land there and built a house and want to go back and settle. But I don't see that type of zeal in the children we raise here. So my question is, how can we bridge that gap to make them to be, so that African stuff, they will be hungry to know about Africa, and also to go back, or even if they are here, to identify more, unlike people who were, sorry to use the word, brought here by slave. They themselves, they were brought here by their parents, and so they know their roots. People are yearning to know their roots. You know your roots, but you are not interested. So how can we bridge that gap? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you, Mr. Ojoa. He's one of the people from my town. I'm so proud of these folks. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love them. So, but to respond to your question, one of the things I've done is kind of it's a chess game. You start early. I'm going to reveal some things to my kids because some of them are here. In fact, they all are here. I started very early to get them connected to who? My brother who is here right now. Started very early. I tell them, call them. When they do something wrong, I say, call them. So he's now a part of their lives. They know him. So when you start early to sow those seeds, and don't put down your country, don't put down your environment. Tell them stories about what it is like. You know, lay good foundation, start early to talk to them, good stories, and get them to understand the dichotomy between Africans and African Americans is not much dichotomy. I tell people I told Floyd the first time I met him, listen, don't come to me with, you're a Black American, I'm an African, because the boat got you there and it didn't get me. With the same thing. And we've gone through the same experiences in the same institution before he's now a big dog and down chair. So I think you're right. We need to start early to nurture these feelings. Don't say, I don't like these African things, I don't like Africans. And when we have organizations, internal organizations, guess what I do? I make sure my kids join us. You've seen my kids there. They came from all corners. They flew in. When I was in New York, they flew in Baltimore. And I saw them at the airport. We all didn't start the same way. I was in New York, they all flew down. Then we took a taxi straight to the convention center. It's very expensive, but you got to put yourself into it and allow them. And here, I also take them to our African situations. You know, you got to neutralize some of those perceptual impediments, like who is better, who is smart, who is this, who is this, who is this. You know, I don't look down. You know, we got to get it. I think as parents, we have to also get it that we got to start appreciating African Americans. Think about it. If your great grandfathers have been victimized, your great grandfather has been victimized, your grandfather has been victimized, your father has been victimized, and you've been victimized, that does something to you mentally. Think about it. We belong to the Igbo tribe. What happened? If you look at many Igbos, we Nigerians, but there's always a reservation because we still think we Biafra, because we saw pregnant women, babies being plucked out of the wombs of pregnant women. We got to show them, tell them good stories, tell them about life, and let them know it's not an easy task. It's just something, you know, like I said, continuing to learn, working with them, it's not easy because the way we were disciplined is different from the way they did being disciplined. My father did not finish second grade, but their father is a doctor. So if we can understand these little things, misgivings, it's not easy, but it's possible. Yeah, my kids have been excited about going home for a long time. So I told them, I'm gonna do something. That's why I was forced to start doing some things there. You got to be making those connections. Let them talk to people from back home. You know, let them connect with people from back home and start talking. So my kids know Jamaicans, they know Nigerians, and they appreciate Obodukwans. My wife actually appreciates Obodukwans, you know, just as equally, even more than me. She doesn't miss those conventions. You know, she's never missed any. She's busy, but she's never missed any. So I think it's not an easy task, not an easy road, but with consistency and showing some understanding, connecting them, not just for them to go one time, then they see lizards, wild geckos, they go, oh man, I didn't know, you know, you have lizards here. You let them know in New York you have roaches. A rat drove me away from the street in New York, I swear. I tried to drive away the rat tried to attack me and I had to run away. I said, you know, coming from Africa, my mind went, somebody must have sent this rat. So if we can understand this, what you call in multicultural education, interest convergence. Interest convergence. Do we have the same interests? If we have the same interests, we go together and solve the problem. If there's no interest convergence, there's a dichotomy there that becomes really, really dangerous to the healthy functioning of a family, of a group of people. That's a great question. Yeah.
Dr. Obiakor, look, you mentioned your kids. Speaking of which, I've got Gina Obiakor next. Gina, I know you've been waiting for a little bit. You're up.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Dad, for bringing me here and to speak. I really have been watching a lot of the talks and the conversation that you've been hosting here, and I find it to be very helpful, especially for my siblings and I and anybody else. I actually connected the podcast to a couple of friends to listen in on, because we are all young professionals. We're the up and coming leaders. And I'm in the last year of my doctorate degree at Loma Linda University. I'm pursuing my doctor of public health. Thank you. Thanks to Sheena. And so with that being said, there's truly something very interesting. As we are progressing in our fields, we are prompted by so many different things. There's so many distractions. There's things that capture us, and we wonder as professionals, should we speak on this? Should we act on this? We want to appear of the times. We want to appear woke. We want to appear abreast of all of the current issues. However, we need to know as professionals, when do we draw the line, and when do we, and how do we create longevity in ourselves? Because there's one thing where it's like, okay, there's clout chasing, yes. And we want to, there's clout chasing, there is. And me, myself, not to toot my own horn, but I do have a lot of followers, right, on Instagram, and I have to choose and decide how I present myself, what information I want to give to my audience, and how I connect with others. And so it brings a lot of responsibility. And to any of us out there who are also in a position of leadership, what do you feel is the best thing to do in terms of building longevity? Those who are teachers, those who are leaders, those are who are working with persons who are from cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds, how do you put them in a position where you're still being like focused and you still want longevity, but you want a little bit of clout, but you want to be focused? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
You want to be woke,
Yeah.
but you don't want to be too lost. And so I feel like that's kind of what I wanted to ask you, because you've been able to create such longevity with your career, and you've been able to maintain these relationships, but you still have the ability to speak on current issues, and but you can back it up. And a lot of people I know, they might have the following, but they can't really back it up.
Thank you very much. That's a good question. That's my first daughter in my life. I have 4 children. Well, you asked a very good question. You know, how do you, I think I will try a little bit. Then Dr. Bichin, I want you to chime in here too, because it's so interesting, because the way to maintain that consistency is this: know who you are. When in doubt, learn the facts. I'm going back to my book, The 8-Step Multicultural Approach. Know who you are, know your strengths and weaknesses. Number 2, learn the facts when you're in doubt. Number 3, change your thinking. Number 4, use resource persons. Number 5, build self-concepts. Number 6, change your thinking or shift paradigms. And number 8, continue to learn.
Okay, so
So one of the things, sorry, to let me finish, please. I'm sorry. One of the things people don't understand is that, yes, even though you want to be woke, even though it's okay, you got to be using your common sense to, just like I told Dr. Gibson, Dr. Linwood Gibson, how do you manipulate through, it's almost like a maze. How do you meander through the maze? So it's a technique to it, because you can be lost somewhere there. So when you woke, it's okay to be woke.
Right.
But you got to go beyond woke. to be vigilant, to be a doer. Because just being awoke, you become what you call an iconoclast. Just understand that most human beings, if not all human beings, have what you call warring souls by W.B. Du Bois. You see, I can be hip hop, I can be Omega Sci-Fi guy, I could be professor, I could be, I could be so many things to different people. You understand? For example, when I'm with my people, I serve in the education committee. I want to play my role there. When I'm around, so sometimes they didn't even know who I was. So when I'm around other people, I do that too. You got to know how to we all have warring souls. Jackson talked about it, how he speaks good English to the public. And when he's around his people, he says, hey, what's up, man? What's up, homie? He knows how to operate within the framework of Black churches, and he knows how to operate within the framework of white churches. And your ability to navigate through these terrains prepare you for life.
Yep.
Somebody,
Gina,
yeah, can you add something
yep.
there?
Gina, that's a great question. And I'll put it to you this way. One of the great things about Dr. Obiakor, he's been able to speak to the generations that have come after him. So you'll see his mentees are at all these different levels. You asked a great question with regard to especially contemporary professionals today. So in terms of clout chasing, yeah, everybody wants a little clout because, that is how that's how you get followers. That's how we sell books. That's how, so it's to a certain extent. Now, the good side of that is if you're spreading good information, if you're being responsible with that, with what is being basically entrusted, you're entrusted with. Think of it this way. Newspapers have the ability, and news outlets have the ability to affect millions and millions of minds, right? Because what they do, they control information. If you have a website, if you have a podcast, if you have a blog, you can directly impact the minds of thousands to millions of people. That's an awesome responsibility. So what you got to do is you have to, like Doc was saying here, you got to really think about what you believe, right? So don't go so far down that road of, I'm just putting information out here just to get more viewers, right? Just to get more. I think, Jenny, you got to think about, where do you draw the line as the person who's in control? Where do you say, look, I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to do that. And how am I going to check somebody who's got out of bounds in certain cases? Am I going to let that ride? Just to promote the mess? Or when will I take a stand and say, you know what? I can't let this fly. And the way you determine that is you got to think about your own authenticity, your own purpose, and your own sense of responsibility. The last thing I'll mention to you is this. With that responsibility, the same thing that Dr. O has done for us, my hope is for you in the next generation that you do the same. Dr. O, you remember Naeem Akbar?
Yeah.
Naeem told me one time, what we have to do is have multi-level mentoring. So in the way that you mentored me, the generation that came after me, and I mentored Tashina's responsibility is to mentor the next generation, and Gina's responsibility will be to mentor another generation coming down up under her, because each one of us can probably, it's a little easier for me to speak to that generation right below me, because we're close in age, we speak the same language, all these kinds of things. But now, if you put us all together, we have a great chain, right? We have a connection. And Gina, I think you got to keep the long view in here, right? Am I behaving in ways, and am I doing things that maintain that link? And that link goes across us as humans. That link goes across us as Africans and African Americans. That link goes across us as Americans. And really that link goes across us as we are explore our humanity on this planet. We're all linked. Charles, I thought I saw a hand. Thank you for that question,
Can
Jamie.
I add something to it real quick, please? Because it's so interesting. When Dr. Beecham wrote his first book, he wrote it, a very well-known book. He said, Dr. O, I went to this conference and saw this brother who is a professor. He had him his phone. He had him his phone, and he will use a credit card. He told people, come sign, come get the book. You still remember that? Then Dr. Beecham said, don't you think I should market my book like that so I can make more money? What was my response?
Yeah, nope, don't do it.
Let your work speak for you. Let your work speak for you. And that, because if you know, and the person has stopped doing it too, because I'm sure another elder must have told him, you write one book, you're making so much noise. Some people have written 10, 20, 30, 40, 80, people like myself. So writing one book is just a part of what we do. So just making you, so you got to moderate, like he said. Use common sense and try to know when you're exceeding your limit, because everybody now sees with technology, everybody now sees what everybody is saying. Everybody now hears what everybody is doing. Everybody is, you know, people are hearing and seeing and thinking and talking. So anything that will be derogatory, people will say, how come you don't make too much noise? I go, no. If you read my work, it speaks for me. So my deal is here. Try to know who you are. Try to value other people for who they are, and you'll be valued also. That's a great question.
Well, thank you, Dad. I mean, Dr. Obiakor. I have another question.
I'm your dad.
Just to maintain professionalism. Could you list again what the 8 steps were, so that maybe I can write it into the chat? Because I think we were trying to take notes on the 8 steps, but
Okay.
I'm not sure if everyone is able to capture.
Okay, step one, know who you are. Acknowledge your weaknesses and strengths. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. Only God is perfect. Number 2, learn the facts when you are in doubt. Don't just go with out-of-the-box presumptions. That's why you have the Kenon now. You have people thinking that the world is coming to an end. No, the world is not coming to an end. It's just going to keep going. And people will be falling by the wayside. All right? Then change your thinking. If you can't change your thinking, why were you learning the facts?
Right.
Then number 4, use resource persons. Ask questions. Take advantage of opportunities. When I talk with Dr. Gibson, Linwood Gibson, we talk like father and son. Believe it or not. We will talk and talk. He will tell me everything. The kid is sick. Something is going wrong. We talk like that. When I talk to Floyd, all the stuff I have in my house, Floyd bought them. He said, I have to follow the African elder, the tradition. We talk like that. He said, do you know, outside my father, when his father died, he said, you're the first person to know my father died. You're now my father, whether you like it or not. You still remember telling me that? So, and that's the way life is. Then number 5, build self-concept. Leave people with something good to say after you. Allow posterity to be the judge. You see, they're talking about how I've helped them, supported them. You know, I'm sure other people try to help them, but they remember what I've done because they're measurable. Leave people with good feeling so that they'll go, let me hire that person. Let me involve that person again. That's how multicultural learning and teaching started, because I called Bob, right? Then shift your paradigm. Make the right choices. There are many choices, like Dr. Beecham said. Make the right choices. Then number 8, continue to learn. Don't stop learning. There's no question that's a stupid question. Take advantage of opportunities. I think that those are the S steps. Yeah.
I think we have more.
All right, we got about 5 minutes remaining. 5 minutes remaining. Charles had a question and Kristen, and we'll have to close after that. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say something real quick. So basically what you were saying was, protecting your intellectual property and putting things into practice and knowing your limitations, to a certain extent, basically what you both were saying and to a certain extent, right?
Yes. And you got to play it close to the chest. You got to play it close to the chest. For example, there's a book I did with Dr. Beecham not long ago. It's our latest book on working with vulnerable populations. I told a colleague that I would like to do the book with him. The person said, well, I'm so busy. So I said, Floyd, you would like to do the book with me? He said, yes. I said, you're not so busy? He said, no, I'm not going to fall for your trap, Dr. Obiakor. You always, because one of the worst statements people make professionally is, I'm so busy. You know what I'm saying? So guess what? When we did the book, the person called us and said, can my name be in the book too? That's what I'm saying. We said, no, we love you, but no. So you got to put your money where your mouth is, to be honest with you. Yeah, thank you very much. I think taking charge of who you are, Yeah, thanks, yeah.
All right, Kristen.
Hello, everyone. So we only have 5 minutes remaining, so I guess I can't really, my questions tend to be, require long responses. So I don't know if I should really even say it, but yeah, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for inviting my dad, and also thank you to everyone who's been responding with great questions and everything. I guess my thing is, like, we have kind of used the word a lot, like this idea of, token, like a tokenizing, Black people and Black persons within, otherwise homogeneous, settings. So, choosing a member of a minority and putting them into a space to just make the appearance of being diverse. And I kind of, I just reject that. I reject, being called that, because I know that it exists, and I know that people do that, but I also think it diminishes like someone like me in terms of like, and like most of us of color who have the qualifications, and diversity is an added strength to our competency and makes us even more meant to be in that space. So and also as you get higher up in education, so for example, me having, this is my 3rd degree, Doctor of Medicine, going to pediatric residency, we're going to be in an environment that's going to have no Black people, right? So yes, I'm a person of color. Yes, I know that I'm going to add to this quota of diversity, what have you, but there's already none. And I don't want it to be that people are looking at me and think, oh, that's just a token Black person, because I fit all of the qualifications I'm meant to be. And I think that also introduces, imposter syndrome. It introduces different feelings for that person of color, because they don't, they believe that they're in this space only because they're, adding to the diversity. So I guess, how do we navigate that concept?
Thank you very much, Christian. I wanted to see you so that other people will see you. You're a very pretty lady.
Yeah, sorry, I'm also on a different meeting in the background, so I have to do this on my phone.
Right. Thank you for you've dealt with equity issues at the
I work in equity issues, so yeah.
So I think you're really right. It's not, sometimes we all know we were hired as tokens, whatever is the thinking. You don't know what is in people's hearts. Anytime, let me make it clear. Anytime you hired in a job, believe me, there's one reason why they hired you. There are other people who have qualifications like you. There's one reason, selfish reason why they hired you, But then you're the one who needs to frame that position the way you want it, like what Dr. Beeching has done. So even though somebody else might be looking at it when I was at City College or New Mexico State or anywhere as the token Black, yes, you can say that if you want to, but it's wrong. Then when you come in, you will see what I'm doing, you discover, oh, this is beyond token. It's our job then to do the right things, whatever positions we have. It doesn't matter what it looks outside, because it's your job to really do what you think is right. Because you have the opportunity now. People can think anything they want to think, but it's your job, not rather than even get angry, because people will say, you know, you're really Black, you should be happy. In fact, the message you don't really want to send at your place of work is that, oh, you should be glad that you're here, or you're here because you're better than everybody. Not really. There's a reason why they got you there. And you also can take advantage of the opportunity and use them also. Take advantage
so
of the opportunity.
I guess for me, I guess I know that what others perceive, then they might be, I feel like what I reject is calling ourselves tokens.
Yeah,
because
okay.
I think that's what I'm like, it's not about like, because I feel like for me, I do have the qualifications to be in the certain spaces that I am. And it also, my diversity, being Jamaican, Nigerian, and American, adds to my ability to talk to patients the way that I talk to them, to have the cultural competency that I have. And so, yeah, so I feel like it's not about, I really don't get angry about like what others are perceiving. It's more so like for ourselves, who belong to these minority groups, to kind of reject this idea that it's always, okay, I've gotten into this position because I am a token. Yeah. Because I think that's when we start to put up our own, walls and barriers. Like, even if the others believe that, like, I think as you're saying, like, we're going to show them how we aren't, right? How we have more to bring to the table. But I think for ourselves, to kind of protect this, know our worth, basically, to know our worth. I think it's like, as a community, I just don't like when we call ourselves tokens. I just,
Kristen, I think that's a great point. And I think you're speaking to that own mental, when sometimes sometimes the problem is internal, right? It's that whole internalized oppression, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The sort of oppression that we, impose on ourselves. So what you're talking about is a great sort of this developing a counter narrative, while these other grand narratives try to tell us this other story, that may enforce a narrative of tokenism in our own minds and in our own heads. We have to get into, how do we liberate our own minds, which is the first step in our concept of culturally relevant leadership. The first step in culturally relevant leadership is the liberation of one's own mindset, right? The liberation of thought. And I think Kristen has articulated this well, is, if I can change my internal state, then I can change external states, right? If I can change my own mind first, then that's the first step in changing the world around me. So Kristen, I think that's actually, I think you're right on the ball with
that. I love that. I think for me, I want to get out of the performative activism that our society likes to do in this woke culture. And Dad, you're talking about that as well. But I think a part of it has to be, like, obviously we're not going to spend time educating everyone else. They have to do that on their own. But for ourselves, what we can do for ourselves is to not believe all of what everyone else is saying, and basically, again, as you're saying, change our what we internalize for ourselves.
Let me add something to what you just said.
Can I say something? Can I say something? Okay, never go.
Let me finish, please. Let me answer, please. Thank you very much. That's a great question. When you come to an institution, Floyd, remember, when you come, the same white people will tell you, be careful about Dr. Obiakor, right? Don't go close to him. But if you're not so smart, you will not go close to Dr. Obiakor. right? They tell you that. They say this person. But if you're smart, when you relate to Dr. Obiakor, because you've been, and it works out, and when you're successful, the same people will go, yeah, you did a good job relating to Dr. Obiakor. Remember, it has happened,
Yep.
So that's why I told him, what do you do? What are you doing? Are you writing? He said, I'm sure he's tough. But when he came, he said, yeah, I can work hard. He's an endowed professor now, one of the youngest endowed professors in the nation. And he's been there now as an endowed chair for how long?
10 years?
10 years. 10 years. I'm proud of you, Dr. Beecham. So we need to be very, very careful. So, Christy, we're not really rejecting the idea. We're not going to call you a token, but we say, actually, don't act like a token. Because remember, they used Dr. Beecham. We were somewhere where a fraternity brother of yours was a tool to destroy you. So we have to be very, very careful in doing these things. And if you kept destroying people, you will not establish a relationship with Dr. Beecham in the end. So anything to thy own self be true. Remember how you were raised. Remember all the values you come with to the table, and put them into practice. You'll be okay.
All right, folks. Charles, one last statement. Charles is going to get one of the last words here.
I was going to say I agree with Dr. Obiakor and Kristen, because Kristen is saying change the ideology of what people are, to even come up with the statement of, of a token in the first place, of somebody who's a token. Well, Dr. O is saying, okay, regardless of what people say or think or do, it is up to you to make that impact, in your profession. It is up to you to work hard enough to change people's perspective, regardless, or it's up to you to erase that ideology or erase that the stupidity anyway, regardless, because it is up to you as to how, so that's all I'm trying to say. So I can see both angles of the situation. So yeah.
It's okay to see both angles. In fact, you need to go beyond both angles, multidimensional angles, to solving the problem. Because if somebody gets into a situation, then they can think however what the reason why they hired you, but in the end, you frame it so good that it doesn't stop you. And they even do it in reward systems, where a colleague will write a book, then you write 3, then they reward the colleague who wrote 1 book. But it's always to disrupt your equilibrium. But if you know who you are, you're dedicated to what you want to do, then all those things will not matter. They'll just be experiences that are actually wonderful for you. So Dr. Beecham, I thank you very much with your doctoral student for giving me this opportunity. Keep up the good work. Like I said, mentoring does not end in 1 second. It doesn't end in 1 day. It's an everlasting phenomenon. God bless all of you who attended this interview. God bless you. God bless your families. It's okay to care for quality. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Excellent.
Thank you to Lehigh University for hiring Dr. Beecham. Thank you. You can see now he's a star, not a rising star. He's a star. Thank you very much. God bless everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Dr. Fesus Obiakor today for a great conversation. We've gone over time, but that's okay. Look, we may have to have a part 2, so be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. In another edition, we may have a second part of this conversation. As a side note, Doc, I've never got it. The last time I've probably even seen your kids they were really little. They were real little. They've grown into such incredible adults. So that's a credit to you and your wife, and you just have such a great family. thank you to everybody who joined us today in real time. We hope you got something out of this conversation. Also, for those of you who've been following our show, be on the lookout for our next show, in which we'll have, we never tell you ahead of time. It's a surprise. You got to join us next month. We have several great guests coming up. We are in the spring here. We've been highlighting national scholars, especially national scholars of color. We got some great folks coming. Later on in March, we'll have our next installment into April, into May, and into June. And also, if you have not joined us, join us on the Facebook page, which is also called Education for the 21st Century, where we'll share even more information. Tashina, anything else for us?
It's just an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you. So I'm blessed. I feel good. Thank you, everyone watching today, and hope everyone continues to, listen to all of our shows and learn something and have these courageous conversations.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again once more, Dr. Obiakor. I will be in touch. Mr. Dr. Gibson, I'll be in touch too. Everyone else.
Thank you.